recommended techniques for how a person would harden their software throughout? I mean, I went through software engineering, PhD in it, and we never really talked about security. So where does a person get started with that, and what do you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's partly a process problem in terms of an SDLC. As you mentioned, going through development school and undergrad and even in graduate school programs, developers are constantly focused on how to write functional code, get it out into production as quickly as possible. Companies are constantly pressuring their developers to get code out faster and new features, new functionality. But it really starts with training developers. As you mentioned, that's a very important thing. Getting developers to think like an attacker and not just a developer, and then building deploying different technologies and different capabilities throughout the SDLC. So there's a whole class of technologies called static analysis tools that developers can use to run against their code, identify any vulnerabilities, and fix them before they ever get to QA. And then a lot of companies that are more mature in this space are building security testing programs in their QA processes, and then have penetration testing before the application actually goes into production. So it's really the idea of trying to find vulnerabilities as early in the SDLC as possible, or training developers ideally to prevent them in the first place from even entering the code, but then making sure that you have different gates throughout the SDLC before an application actually gets into production.
So some of the other things I'd say which are somewhat interesting are, as a developer, you don't trust the input or the information being given to you by the endpoint or the client or anything along those lines. You have to kind of have this inherent lack of trust for what you're getting. The other thing is not only doing security inside of your own code, but also looking at the security of the devices and the supporting frameworks that you're using, making sure that your supporting frameworks don't have any vulnerabilities, making sure you keep your supporting frameworks up to date. The web server, the database, all the other pieces of the application are also very important to secure. And you can have the hardest front end out there, but if your back end is really weak and really insecure, someone can get in and get to the information.